In this video I will give you an introduction to the Arduino hardware. We will look at the major elements of this board here, such as the microcontroller, the various types of input and output pins, and also at some other components such as the power supply and the USB connector. And after watching this video you will be familiar with the most important hardware elements on the Arduino board, and you will have no problem understanding the small LED circuit we will be building in the second half of this video. My name is Andreas from the Fearless Engineer, and here we go. Now let's take a look at the various components of a typical Arduino board. And in this case we are looking at the Arduino Uno in its third version, but there are many others out there with minor and sometimes major differences between them, and I will include a link to an overview of the currently available boards on the Arduino project page in case you're interested. Just have a look into the description below this video here. In this video we will be looking at the microcontroller, which is the brain of the Arduino board, at the power supply to the board, which includes the USB port and the DC power jack you can see here, and we will also be looking at the various pins which can be grouped into power source, analog pins and digital pins. And finally I will also be talking shortly about components such as the oscillator crystal on board here and the reset button. And this video is all about getting you started quickly, which is why we will be staying on the surface with many of the components here. There will be videos in the future which go into more depth, but for now the goal is to keep it to the essentials you will need to build the Arduino traffic light project, which we have started in the last video. And in case you have not seen this yet, the link to the first video is coming up for you now. But now let's start with the microcontroller, which is the heart and brain, so to speak, of the Arduino. And the rest of the board basically provides support and easy access to this device. Now, a microcontroller is basically an entire computer on a single chip, and in case of the Arduino it is called ATmega328. And the chip, the ATmega328, has a total of 28 pins and is fitted into a socket so that it can be easily replaced in case it should be damaged during an experiment. And as you can see here from the schematic, there are pins for both data input and also data output. And the input pins can read both digital information and also analog data. And digital means binary, so the microcontroller can differentiate between logical 0 and logical 1, while the logical 1 corresponds to a voltage level of plus 5 volts in this case. And analog means that we can actually measure the voltage at a pin and also encode it into a number, which enables us to connect many different types of sensors for light, for temperature, for sound and many others, and use the measurements they produce in a program within the microcontroller. And the output pins can also be divided into analog and digital. So you can set a pin to be on or off, which corresponds to 0 volts or 5 volts to turn on an LED, for example. And when using an analog output, you can set the pin to some particular voltage level, which allows you to control, for example, the speed of a motor or the brightness of a light, rather than simply turning it on or off. In the figure you can see a block diagram which shows the main components of the microcontroller. And the central processing unit, the CPU, is an 8-bit RISC processor, which stands for Reduced Instruction Set Computer. And 8-bit means that the length of a single instruction for this microcontroller is a sequence of 8 ones and zeros, which is not much compared to a modern CPU in your smartphone or desktop computer or laptop, which typically nowadays has an instructional length of 64 bits in most devices we find on the market. And also, as you can see from the block diagram, there are 3 different sorts of memory in the Arduino. The first is the working memory, or SRAM, which is used for storing data during runtime, which means during normal operation. And this memory is volatile, which means that all data in it is erased when the Arduino loses power. And just as a comparison, the size of this memory type is at 2 kilobytes only, while the memory in most desktop computers and probably even your smartphone exceeds in 2020 the gigabyte threshold in most cases. So when we program the Arduino, we need to have an eye on memory consumption all the time. And in future videos we will look more closely at how this type of memory is structured and how we can allocate blocks of data in areas within it called heap and stack using the C language. And the second memory type is called flash memory, and it holds the programs which we load into the Arduino. This particular type of memory, it can be best compared to, let's say, a USB stick or flash drive, and it can be rewritten many times over, and we can reuse it to load new programs onto the Arduino. And while its size still does not compare to your desktop computer, it has at least 16 times the size of the working memory we have talked about so far. Also, the flash memory contains the so-called bootloader, which controls the startup procedure of the microcontroller. And typically the size of the bootloader in this case is about half a kilobyte. And finally, the third memory type is called Eeprom, which stands for electrically erasable and programmable read-only memory. And this type is similar to the flash memory in the sense that you can also keep data stored in it even after power has been lost. But while the flash memory is mostly intended for program instructions, the Eeprom is meant to be used for data that should not be lost. In this sense, you can compare it to a small hard drive, if you will, that can be used, for example, to log a very limited amount of data points and store them from sensors, let's say, and store them in the Arduino permanently. So the microcontroller is the place where all the magic happens. So when we say we program the Arduino, what we really do is program the microcontroller on the Arduino board. But before we get to the programming part, let's take a look at some other hardware components first. Now let's start with the power supply. And as I've said before, the Arduino mostly uses a power level of 5 volts. So depending on the methods of power supply, the board needs to convert the level of the external voltage, which is done using a component called voltage regulator, which you can see directly above the power jack. So when you connect a DC adapter to the Arduino, it can be anything between 7 volts and 12 volts, and it will be the job of the voltage regulator to scale down into a constant 5 volts. And by the way, the reason why 5 volts is used with most microcontrollers which we find, this goes back to the first logic gates, which use something called transistor logic, or TTL for short. And for these TTL devices, the voltage had to be somewhere in between 4.5 volts and 5.5 volts, which is why, as a compromise, so to speak, 5 volts directly in the middle was chosen and has stayed ever since. And the reason why the voltage regulator is such a comparatively large component that you can find on the board has to do with the fact that it has to dissipate a considerable amount of heat, which is generated by the current which passes through it. And as an alternative to the DC power jack we have been talking about so far, we can simply connect the Arduino to the USB port of your computer, which is the usual way during the development phase of a project. Let's conduct a quick experiment to see how the voltage regulator behaves when we change the input voltage here. And first we connect a voltage source to the DC jack, and then we set it to 7 volts direct current. And when we now press the tip of the voltmeter to the lower pin and the upper pin of the voltage regulator, we can approximately measure the source voltage minus a few millivolts that are lost somewhere along the path to the multimeter here. And when we press the red tip against the middle contact, the voltage drop changes to almost 5 volts, which is the voltage level that is provided to the Arduino board. And when we change the source voltage from 7 volts to 10 volts on the DC power source, you can see that the voltage drop between the upper and lower pin also changes to almost 10 volts now. And when we now measure between the lower and the middle pin again, you can see that the supply voltage has not changed. It is still at 5 volts just as before. It has been regulated by the voltage regulator. And next, let's have a look at the connectors at the bottom of the Arduino board. Let's start with the one which reads reset, and if this pin is connected to plus 5 volts, it causes the Arduino platform to perform a reset operation, which can best be compared to the reboot of a PC. And when the reset command is issued, the program in the memory is started again from the first line. There's also a button for this on the board, which you can press for this purpose manually, but the pin allows you to set up something like a watchdog device that monitors the operation automatically, which is very helpful in case you cannot reach this button very easily, in case the Arduino board has been enclosed in a casing, for example. And the rest of the pins in this section provides different voltage levels, such as the 3.3 voltage or 5 volts, or the ground voltage, which just means 0 volts in this case. And ground is the reference voltage to which all other voltages on the board are relative. And in case you're not sure about the meaning of reference voltage or voltage difference or potential, you might want to watch my video on this topic. The link is coming up for you right now. And in the last video on how to connect an LED to the Arduino, we hooked up an LED and a resistor to the 5 volt pin and also the ground pin. And what's important for you to know is that the voltage supply from these pins is permanent. You can't control them via the software. And also you have to carefully watch the resistance of the components you connect to the Arduino, because there is a limit to the amount of current it can withstand. And for the 3.3 volt supply, the maximum current is rated as 50 milliamps. And for the 5 volt supply, there's no direct reference to it in the handbook, but it is somewhere around 400 milliamps. So we can use Ohm's law to determine the minimum resistance we may safely connect to these pins. And as a small practice, you might want to calculate those resistance values by yourself for 50 milliamps and for 400 milliamps if you like, and let me know your results down in the comment section below. Well, the next section of pins we want to look at are the analog pins, and these pins can be used to measure the voltage level connected to them so that we can use it in a program as a numerical 10-bit value, which means that between 0 and 5 volts, for example, there would be 1024 discrete voltage increments to represent the analog input level. And it's also important to note that all these pins have a very large internal resistance, so that only a small amount of current actually flows from the pin into the Arduino. We will look at the analog pins in more detail in a future video, but in this traffic light project we are about to develop, we will only be needing digital output pins. And one very nice thing about the Arduino is that most of its pins can be used in multiple operating modes. So for the analog pins, this means that you can also use them as digital inputs and even as output pins. But by default, they are labeled as analog and they behave as analog pins. And if you want to have another behavior, you have to change this in the code base. And just as with the power supply pins, you have to watch the maximum current draw of the pins, which is at 40 milliamps according to the Arduino specification. Now let's continue with the tour and move to the top row of connectors now, which are labeled as digital and can be used as either inputs or outputs. And when using them as outputs, they behave just like the 5-volt supply pin in the other row, with a big difference that we can turn them on and off using code instructions. So if we set a digital pin to on, the voltage level goes up to 5 volts, and when we set it to off, it goes down to 0 volts again. And just as with the supply connectors, we have to be careful not to exceed the maximum current, which is also in this case at 40 milliamps. And while this is more than enough to just light up an LED, for example, as we did in the last video, it's not sufficient to drive an electric motor, which has a significantly larger power consumption. But in order to understand how this can be done, there will be another video in the future that also shows you how you can use a transistor or multiple transistors to control larger currents in a circuit, for example, to drive a motor. And also, instead of using the digital pins as an output, we can set them to serve as an input pin instead, in which case they would tell us whether the voltage at the pin would be above a certain level or below a certain level. And this threshold is somewhere in the area around 2.5 volts. And maybe you have noted the pins labeled as PWM on the board. We will look at these in detail in future videos, but for now, let's just say that they allow us to encode a digital signal by using a concept called pulse width modulation, which also allows us to adjust the voltage level to some extent and with certain properties. But as with the other pins, we can also use these for multiple purposes as well, which means that we can set them to behave as purely digital input and output pins in the Arduino program. And while there are still more components we could cover here, let's leave it at this for now and take a look at the LED circuit from the last video instead. As you can see from the schematic, we can currently connect a single LED and a resistor to the permanent 5-volt power supply of the Arduino board. But now in this video, let's extend the circuit by adding a second LED to it. And let's start with pushing a green LED into the breadboard with its shorter leg facing to the left. And now we use a small bridge to connect it to the ground potential of the Arduino, just as before with the red LED. And then we insert another 220 ohm resistor into the board, with one side connecting to the longer leg of the LED. And now we are almost done with extending the circuit. The only thing missing is a connection to a positive terminal. But instead of using the permanent supply, which we used in the last video for the red one, we now connect the green LED to one of the output pins using a short cable. And with this, we are basically done setting up the hardware. Now let's take a quick look at the schematic before we start the actual programming. And as you can see, we still have the red LED connected to plus 5 volts and ground, and while the green LED also connects to ground, its other side is connected to an output pin. And now let's power up the Arduino and just see what happens. And once we plug in the USB from my computer, the red LED lights up and the green LED stays dark, because the default state of all output pins is 0 volts. And in order to change that, we need to write a small program that sets the LED pin to a high level permanently. We will look at the programming interface in more detail in the next video, but now we are only concerned with what's happening on the hardware side. And as soon as we transfer this program here, which basically does nothing more than setting the output level of the pin to which the LED is connected to a high state, as soon as we power on the Arduino, the program is executed, the pin is set to high, and you can see that the LED lights up. The green one is driven by software and the red one is driven by the permanent power supply of the Arduino board. In this video, I have given you a short overview of the Arduino board and its major components. You now know that the microcontroller is called ATmega328 and has a very limited amount of memory and is also connected to the outside world with a variety of input and output pins, which you can control using software. And in the next video of this mini-series here, I will give you a tour of the Arduino programming interface, and we will also write a first version of the traffic light control program which we need for our project. So if you like this video, consider leaving a thumbs up and also think about subscribing to my channel. And also, if you're interested, you can download all the slides and schematics I am using in my project and videos from my website at thefearlessengineer.com. The link is coming up now here in the banner. So thanks for watching, have fun, and see you next time here on The Fearless Engineer.